Welcome to Bed Crime Stories podcast. I'm your host, T. If you like true crime without the drama and in a calm voice, you're in the right place. And let me just ask that after listening to or watching this video, if you find you enjoyed it or learned something, do me a favor, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave me a comment. And now, without further ado, let's dig in. We're getting new information from the courtroom where Richard Allen is on trial for the deaths of Libby German and Abby Williams. A sketch artist who was allowed into the courtroom, her name is April Ganzer, described capturing the courtroom where the families of Libby and Abby are waiting for justice 7 years after the two teenagers died. Today is the third day of actual testimony, and it's been a difficult day because crime scene images were shared with the jury. And while family members and jurors had visceral reactions to these horrific images, apparently Richard Allen had no discernible reaction. Maybe he was like, I know what it looks like, I was there. Or maybe he's like, he just doesn't react to these type of things if he's not guilty. Ganzer is an artist who helps lead the local art company TAG, and she was approached to do the job of sketch artist for the trial. Ganzer spoke exclusively to the U.S. Sun newspaper. She's very proud of the drawings, and she described feelings that were emanating from the courtroom as she sat there looking at the face of the defendant, Richard Allen. So Ganzer was only about 4 feet away from Allen, which I'm sorry, if I was there, that would probably scare me. I'm not saying he's definitely guilty, but I'm saying if he's guilty, he's a scary dude. So Ganzer told the Sun that Allen was wearing a purple shirt and slacks instead of a prison jumper, and for some reason this outfit shocked her. When she was asked about Allen's behaviors in the courtroom, she said she remembers seeing him smile assuredly at his family members who watched on from the gallery. Ganzer is quoted as saying, I caught him even having a prayerful moment at times as they prepared to begin. I was very fresh and new walking into it, so I didn't have that relationship, but many people were there offering support. I think she's saying she didn't have support necessarily in the courtroom from people she knows, and it's probably a scary situation to walk into such a trial. Apparently, some people have been criticizing her drawings, but for me, I'm finding them invaluable. Anybody who can't be inside the courtroom and benefit from these drawings, whether you like her style or you don't, you get a sense of what people are looking like, what their facial expressions are, what the overall mood is in the courtroom. Ganzer apparently said that family members, reporters, and prosecutors all walked into the courtroom looking anxious to finally get answers to this mystery. She said, quote, it was calm and tense at the same time. Everyone in the room is ready for closure. It was a very respectful time. Everyone was kind of holding their breath. It's been a long 7 years, and everyone there, including the public, are eager to get a verdict and get justice for the situation, end quote. Ganzer apparently wasn't very familiar with the case when she signed up for the job. Surprise, surprise, this is a very scary case you'll be drawing up. By the way, she was only allowed into the courtroom on the first day of the trial, so we're not going to get any more of these drawings unless Judge Gull changes her mind. I hope she does, because we're not getting a lot of descriptions about how people look from the mainstream media. Ganzer said she briefly reviewed Richard Allen's face to prepare for this one-day job. She also hadn't worked as a courtroom sketch artist before, but was excited to take on the challenge. When she signed up for the job, she was asked to come out with 3 to 5 drawings of the proceedings, but she managed to turn out 8 sketches. And apparently the critics online have not been kind. She sounds confident though, like it's water off her back. This afternoon, Sergeant Jason Page, a crime scene investigator with the Indiana State Police, explained how he photographed the crime scene and the victims. The defense spent time questioning why some pieces of the scene weren't better documented or tested. Apparently, they asked about why the branches that were placed on the girls' bodies were not recovered immediately. Apparently, a crime scene investigator came back to the scene weeks later, and that's when they were collected. CSI explained that it would be difficult to get DNA from the sticks or branches. The tree branches were on top of the girls and they appeared set in a V or cross-shaped pattern. Some of the branches were large. There was a large tree limb that was on Libby's body, coming from her left shoulder down her body. They also talked about the cartridge that was found between Abby and Libby. The unspent bullet was reportedly linked to a weapon that Richard Allen owns. Investigators claim the tool marks on the cartridge, which wasn't fired but rather ejected, were a match for a weapon owned by Allen. Defense attorney Brad Rozzi asked Sergeant Page about the cartridge. He said that the unspent bullet was face down in the ground, and it was actually found depressed into the ground, wondering if somebody stepped on it. And the photograph investigators took at the scene doesn't show it in its entirety. It sounds like they only took that one photo. Rozzi asked Sergeant Page multiple times why this was done, or rather why more photographs weren't taken, saying that being able to see the markings on it would be crucial in a case like this. Sergeant Page responded, "The CSI didn't ask for supplementary photos." Well, we knew that the defense was definitely going to go after the crime scene investigators. This seems to happen in all of these cases that go to trial. Now, according to an article in Newsweek, when the crime scene photos of Libby and Abby were shown, some of the family members and jurors gasped. Apparently, there were some close-up shots of the girls' necks, throats. We know that Abby was wearing clothes while Libby was not. There was a lot of the red stuff, if you know what I mean, on Libby's body. On Abby, most of the red was near the wound on her neck. There was also red stuff underneath the bodies in the ground. Libby's mother cried, and her younger sister, Kelsey, looked away, and her grandparents held hands. I'm somewhat surprised that the family members stayed in the courtroom for these images, and we know that Abby was wearing Libby's sweatshirt and jeans, while the rest of the clothes were found in the nearby creek. We also learned today that Allen's defense team filed a motion on Sunday asking Judge Gull to bar the video from Libby's cell phone that appears to capture Bridge Guy, aka Richard Allen, if you think he's guilty, muttering the words, "down the hill." Judge Gull has yet to rule on the motion. Now, Sergeant Jason Page, the CSI for the Indiana State Police, described the area that was roped off as the crime scene as roughly being the size of a football field. The area around the bodies he called Ground Zero. Now, some of these details have already come out, but I'm going to remind you of them. Libby's left hand was extended above her head. Her right hand was at her side. She had the red stuff, if you know what I mean, all over her neck and face, as well as on her right leg. Libby was without clothing. Abby was fully clothed, and she was wearing a dark blue sweatshirt and jeans and her black Converse tennis shoes. And her right foot was tucked under her left leg, just below the calf. Prosecutors shared 40 crime scene photos. They were made up of images of the girls as well as the surrounding areas. And unfortunately, at one point, somebody hit the wrong button, and a close-up of Libby's face was prematurely projected into the courtroom. So no warning and like bam. That's a mistake you don't want to have happen, especially for the family members being in there. That probably explains why they're saying that certain people gasp. Libby's tie-dye shirt was seen in the creek along with one of her tennis shoes, which was floating upside down. And we know that Libby's other tennis shoe was found underneath Abby's body. Libby's cell phone was also under Abby's body. They're also saying that the clothes that Abby was wearing appeared to be wet. I'm wondering if that is going to point to a different timeline. When was Abby in the creek? Why was the clothing wet? Is it wet from water from the creek, or is it the red stuff? Abby's body was 3 to 5 feet away from Libby's. When CSI Page was asked if a SA forensic exam was performed on the girls, the investigator said he assumed a test was conducted during the autopsy, but he was unaware as he did not attend the autopsy. That's all for today, and I'll see you next time on Bed Crime Stories.